Okay, once again, thanks everybody for joining us this morning for the session on an introduction to Amazon QuickSight. My name is Quentin Alsbury. I'm a product manager on the QuickSight team, and along with me I have Jesse Gebhardt and Neil Colley, who are both business development managers with the QuickSight organization as well. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jesse and start. The goal of this session is to give you an overview about QuickSight, an introduction to how to use it, and then at the end, hopefully we'll have plenty of time for live questions and answer sessions. So this session is being recorded. We'll send out a recording to all the attendees after we get going. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jesse.
Great, thanks Quentin. So hi everybody, my name is Jesse Gebhardt. I'm a business development manager on the QuickSight side. So I'll be leading us through the presentation and also through a demo today. There is a section within the Zoom meeting console where you can ask questions. So feel free to ask them throughout the whole presentation. We've also got Neil on who's going to be helping answer those as they come in. So we'll take them at the end, but feel free to ask them throughout as well. All right, so QuickSight at a high level is a cloud-powered business intelligence and data visualization service that is offered by AWS. So if we look at kind of the four major reasons why our customers like using QuickSight. So the first one, no servers to manage. QuickSight is a serverless type of architecture. And what serverless means is that you don't need to choose how many nodes you want to configure, say, to support 1,000 users or anything like that. You simply sign up for the service, you can add your users, connect to your data, build your reports, and we take care of all the infrastructure behind it. So never have to plan for upgrades or perform maintenance. All that's taken care of. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the bottom point there being scalable. So you could start with a trial of QuickSight today. We do offer, there's a user that's free forever, so consider that kind of like the free tier. You get one free user. There's also up to 5 users that are free for the first 2 months. So say you were taking advantage of that trial and then overnight you want to add 5,000 users to QuickSight. You don't need to tell us, you don't need to configure anything in your QuickSight account. Before you do that, again, we just take care of all the infrastructure behind the scenes to make sure that we can scale to meet your needs. So then on the upper right, pay for what you use. This is unique to QuickSight within the BI industry. So we released this new pricing model in June of last year. The reason why we did this is because a lot of our customers were coming to us with the kind of problems around pricing models that are either just a per user per month fixed fee, or paying for capacity and wondering if they're going to use all that capacity or need more capacity. So a lot of our customers have the use case of they have a report that needs to go out to a couple thousand users. They know a couple hundred of them are going to be in there very active every day, but there's a lot, like a long tail of users who they need to give access to these reports, but they're not quite sure how active and frequently they're going to access them. So they don't want to necessarily pay the same for someone who looks at it every day and someone who looks at it once a month or once a week. So that's kind of where we came up with this model. And then lastly, fully integrated, you can build end-to-end AWS solutions from storage of your data to querying it, to visualizing it in QuickSight. We also can integrate with CloudTrail from an audit perspective, like if you want to see what users are doing in your account and see who's seen a given dashboard, who's sharing them, what time did they see it, those kind of things. And then lots of different ways to do single sign-on with our other services, but nonetheless, very deeply integrated with the rest of the platform. So dive a little bit into how QuickSight works now. So from a data connectivity standpoint, these are all the data sources that we support in QuickSight today. In the middle section there, you see lots of the sources that you have within AWS. Also some other databases that are not necessarily AWS databases, but that you might be hosting on like an EC2 server, for instance, like SQL Server or Postgres. We connect to many of those sources if you have them on premise as well. and we also connect to a number of third-party applications. One kind of key point to cover here is that QuickSight has the ability to connect to data within your VPC. And this is something that's unique to QuickSight versus other BI products you might find out there. So we have a way to kind of securely connect in a private manner to any sources within your VPC. It also allows us to connect to your data on-prem without going over any public networks or anything like that. Traditionally, if you had, say, your Redshift or your RDS database inside your VPC, you would be looking at putting a public endpoint on that database to allow other services or other BI tools to connect to it. So with QuickSight, that's not necessary, and it's a big kind of security win that our customers get. So when you connect to these data sources, you can connect in two ways. You can either do direct connection, like live to the underlying database, or you can import data in memory into Spice. So Spice is the query engine and in-memory database that we have built in as part of QuickSight. The reason that you'd be using Spice is basically to improve the performance of the data that's serving your dashboards. So you can import up to 100 million rows of data into Spice per data set. And like on a given dashboard, I might be using multiple data sets in that dashboard, and each one of those can be up to 100 million rows. You can then schedule them to refresh on an hourly, a daily, a weekly kind of basis. You have that within your control. But again, Spice is really there for performance and also for concurrency. So once you import a data set into Spice, you can scale it out and have 1,000 concurrent users looking at the same time. And again, you don't need to worry about configuring anything so you can serve that large user base. We spin up replicas of the data really quickly in the background due to the way that we've architected it. So it's great for concurrency too. So in terms of the user personas and roles that you have within QuickSight. So on the top section there, those are what we call them in QuickSight. And on the bottom, those would be kind of like what they translate to within your organization. So admins, they're going to be setting up the account, controlling what kind of authentication there is, like should we do single sign-on with one of our other single sign-on platforms or Active Directory, or do we just want to invite people via email? Setting up things like those VPC connections. Then authors are going to be creating all the data sets and creating the content, all the dashboards. And then readers are people that come and visit your reports and dashboards to consume them. So they can do things like filter and set parameters and drill down and interact. But generally they're consuming and not necessarily creating new reports. And then to touch on the pricing real quick. So I mentioned the pay-per-use pricing. So on the authors, it's just a per user per month fee. And then the readers is where this per session model comes into play. So first off, there's a maximum cost of $5 a user a month. You'll never pay more than that, and that is unlimited usage. I can send them unlimited email reports. They can visit the dashboards as much as they'd like. You'll never pay more than $5 a user a month for them. If they don't log in at all that month, then you pay $0 for them. You don't pay anything. And then kind of in between there, for people that are looking at reports like on a weekly basis and things like that, we do it on a per session basis. So a session to us is 30 minutes from when you first log in to go see your first dashboard. I could look at 100 different dashboards in that 30 minutes. It's still just one session. I could even just leave my browser open for a while past that 30-minute window. I'm not incurring new sessions. It's just that if I were to go back to that report or open a new one, say after lunch, 4 hours later, then that would be session number 2. So it's 30 cents per session up again to that max of $5 a user a month. So very different than what you'll see in the rest of the market. We've got some comparisons both on our website and then the slide deck that we can share with you of what a typical usage pattern looks like. So if I've got 50 or 500 or 5,000 users, what do we see from our customer base in terms of usage and what the readers wind up costing them? There's other comparisons versus other platforms out there just using public pricing on websites. So generally, it's a fairly significant difference in terms of the amount of savings that our customers find with QuickSight. So from a development standpoint, QuickSight was launched generally available about 2 years back. Since then, we've launched over 120 new features. So if you do the math, that's almost a feature, or it is a feature every single week. Our release cadences are more like every 2 to 4 weeks. And then within those, you'll find 2 to 4 new features. The nice part about this is as soon as we do a new release, all those features are available to you in your account. You don't need to upgrade it or anything like that. Next time you log in, you just be able to use them. And for folks that have maybe used QuickSight in the past and are checking it out again, we've got a kind of summary on what's new since June. Again, we're going to be able to share this with you afterwards. You can find all this information on our website as well. But some of the major ones would be like the new pricing model, VPC connectivity, the ability to embed dashboards within your applications. So if you've got a website or some customer-facing app and you want to be able to put QuickSight dashboards in there for your customers or for your internal users, we've added the ability to embed these dashboards. And the other major one I'll call out is ML Insights. So this is something that we have in preview right now, but will be launched by the end of February. So we're just a few weeks away from it. And this is really a set of features where we see QuickSight leapfrogging a lot of what other people are doing in the industry. So we've added automatic machine learning powered anomaly detection and forecasting, as well as the ability for QuickSight to naturally generate insights, like in natural language and in plain text, about the data that you're viewing in your dashboard. So we'll certainly show you what these look like, but these are some of the really exciting new things that we've been working on. So just to touch on the embedded dashboards part real quick, let me just skip ahead here a little bit. So the idea here is to take a QuickSight dashboard and embed it into your application or your portal. So in this example, everything from these set of controls down, this is QuickSight, the rest is the NFL's portal. So in this particular example, this is a customer that uses QuickSight in the embedded fashion. So the NFL has this platform called the Next Gen Stats platform. So they now use RFID trackers within the shoulder pads of all the players every single game, and they track all their movements, who's on and off the field, how fast are they running, where are they located on the field. And what they do with this data is they dump it into AWS, they crunch it with some of our machine learning services, and they deliver it back in the form of these advanced statistics that they could never do before. And they deliver it to the teams as well as to broadcasters within this portal. So each one of these tabs has a different report embedded into it. When I log into the Next Gen Stats platform, we do single sign-on between that platform and QuickSight, so theoretically they don't even need to know what QuickSight is or remember another set of credentials. You can even set security so that when certain users log in, they see different data. So like for instance, in this tab, when I go to view that report, maybe I only see data from one team and you see data from a different team. Or if you're doing this for your customers, right, it's quite common. You're going to put a set of reports within your app. And then when I log in, I only see data from customer A, you only see data from customer B, right? So that kind of security can be configured into these. And then lastly, we'll touch real quick on the machine learning, and then we'll jump to the demo. So the ML Insights, again, that we have in preview now, that'll be at the end of the month. The three major components: anomaly detection. So that's where I could just hook QuickSight up to a data set, say that I want you to monitor these set of metrics across these set of dimensions, and just notify me if you find an anomaly in the data. So we're running algorithms on that data, per the schedule that you set, so on an hourly or daily basis. And then you'll be notified once we find something anomalous there. I'll show you what this looks like in the tool. Second being forecasting. So if I've got a trend of time series data, we can predict what those values are going to look like into the future. Both those ML-powered first two use an algorithm developed by Amazon about 8 or 10 years ago called the random cut forest algorithm. It's what Amazon.com uses to run many parts of the business, and you get to use it in QuickSight for free included. And then the last one, auto narratives. This is actually probably my favorite one out of the bunch. So this is QuickSight's ability to generate insights in plain English and show them to you without, completely automatically. So I'll show you some examples of what this looks like as well. So for anomaly detection, imagine starting your day with something like this. So I receive an email saying that, hey, in this particular set of categories, we found that, in this example, video games was up 58% higher than expected. So there's actually a real example using Amazon.com data on Prime Day where we looked at the retail data set and tried to find anomalies. So video games is up 58%, but we also tell you what was primarily what drove that. So what are the top contributors? So PlayStation 4 contributed 38% to that rise because it itself was up 156%. Right? So you get more than just, hey, this is up or this is down. We also tell you why. When you click on that, you get to pre-configured dashboards in QuickSight that manage all of your anomalies, any ones that you've asked us to monitor, and on a historical basis too. You can do further contribution analysis, and I could see, okay, within PlayStation 4, what type of customers are buying this, what age groups, what geographies, right? You just continue to split it further and further. Forecasting, fairly self-explanatory, but very easy to add. You can just kind of use the little pull-down menu, right-click on the corner, and say you want to add the forecast. We run some algorithms on the data and then predict that out into the future. So you can do some kind of lightweight what-if analysis with the forecasting. For instance, like I could reset a target from 25 to 30 billion and see how that actually affects my forecast. So you can kind of see the difference between these two slides here. And then lastly, the natural language narratives. So, you see a lot of text boxes on this screen here, and these were all automatically generated by QuickSight. And all the numbers in here and findings are all completely dynamic. So as the data changes, or even as I add filters to this, and say I just filter it to one state or one country or something, everything in here will reflect the new data and my new filters. So even things like the color coding, so I can set conditional formatting to say, if something was positive, then turn it green, otherwise turn it red. Or write this piece of text or don't write it at all. So I see this just being very useful for really any customer to be able to convey what's meaningful in that dashboard in a much clearer fashion. So, traditionally a lot of folks use KPI values on their dashboards, right? There's some values that I'm tracking that I want to know if I'm doing well or if I'm doing poorly. So rather than just giving you a KPI number and letting you try and find, dig down in the data and figure out why that happened, I likely know the top 2 or 3 questions you're going to ask when you get to this dashboard. So if I can just craft some narratives that specifically address your top 3 questions, I can just shortcut and really just make your analytics a lot more efficient. All right, so at this point, let's jump into a demo. So I'm logged into QuickSight here as an author type of user. If I were logged in as a reader, all I would see is just my list of dashboards that I have access to. So theoretically, each person's home screen might be a little different because they have access to different dashboards. They won't see these areas for like manage data or new analysis. These are just things like an author would do. But as I go to visit one of these dashboards, this is the same experience that a reader would have. So once I'm on a dashboard, here first I have see a number of controls where You can set whatever kind of filters you'd like. So drop-down menus, checkboxes, date selectors, whatever kind of filters you want to add. Consider those a given. You can add them across the top of your dashboard. As I select these, notice everything in the whole dashboard updates. So these are tied to all visuals, or you can time to just individual ones. Also notice some of these narratives that we were talking about earlier. So QuickSight automatically generated these, the text that's in these boxes. And as I select different filters, right, all the numbers in here are changing. My list of top customers is changing. My list of biggest moving categories is changing. Right, so this is not just like fixed text. It's all dynamically generated. So I can see what my forecast is going to look like in 3 months from now. You know, who are my top customers? Who's changed a lot from a month-over-month perspective. Here's an example of the forecasting. So this orange part of the line are the forecasted values. So my data actually stops here. And we're projecting what that's going to look like into the future. So other kind of things that readers would do in terms of interacting with your reports and dashboards, you know, besides the filters are other ways to drill down, such as like this in-place drill down. So here, if I have my different industries or segments, I could say, let's drill into one of these and let's look at the customers within that industry. And then I could select a customer and see what products they purchase from me. Right, so whatever kind of drill path you have in your data that makes sense, this is just a drag and drop, you know, drag the fields in whatever order you want them to drill through, and your users will be able to drill into the data that way. It's very easy to set this up. I'll show you this when we switch to the authoring side. So also on the bottom here, just an example of a text table. You know, as you saw in the NFL example where they were embedding QuickSight, they used more kind of simple text tables, and that's totally fine. A lot of our customers just use QuickSight, and they use tabular reports, and that's perfectly fine. So I just want to point out that QuickSight can do these as well. You can sort, you know, by whatever column you'd like. You can paginate through the data. You can export it if you need to. So you can export data to CSV at any point, up to 1 million rows of data. Right, so here's that same data that we were just looking at. And if you remember, I chose to sort it by this column. So even when I export it, it's still sorted. So preserve stuff like that. So generally, these are the kind of things that a reader would do, and showing you, I'm kind of highlighting the end user experience here. So a couple of things before we switch to how do we connect to data and how do we build these from scratch. So first would be, you know, what if I have mobile users? What if I have people that want to see these on their phones or on their tablets? So I'm just going to tell my browser I'm now coming from a phone. And the first thing you notice is that QuickSight automatically reorganized the dashboard to be more vertical by nature. So that fits much better on a small screen real estate like a phone. So I can now scroll, you know, with my finger. You know, if I get to things like the tables, I can still scroll around and up and down. So this just happens automatically for any user that we recognize that comes from a mobile device. There's nothing you need to configure or do extra. This is just something that's built into QuickSight. We do offer a mobile app for iPhones as well, so you can use the app, or what I was showing you is just if you're using just the mobile browser, works great as well. So either one you can use. And then the last thing to point out from a consumption perspective is the ability to email these reports. So if I have this dashboard and I want to send it to my users, you know, every morning at 9 or once a week on Mondays, I can control the schedule at which this gets sent to them, who should it get sent to, and basically it's going to look like a snapshot of this. So it'll be embedded into the email itself as an image, and it's going to grab the whole dashboard that we see here. So it'll even do customized emails per user. For instance, like if I have that row level security set up so that I only see data from certain customers and you see data from different customers, that will still be preserved even when I send those emails. So I'll just get my customized version and you'll get a different version too. All right, so this kind of wraps up the end user experience of what does a dashboard look like? What can my users do? So what we're going to do now is we're going to show how to create these from scratch. So I'm going to make a new analysis here, and then I can either use an existing data set or I can go create a new data set. So the existing ones, first off, notice some of these say Spice, some of them do not. So some of that data is imported in memory into Spice and put on a schedule to refresh. And some of these are just connected directly to my underlying database. Some of them even say, let's see, there's one here. Here, this one says that it's restricted. So the row level security that I was talking about, customer A sees different data than customer B. This data set has that enabled. So any report I build from this, has those rules enforced. So think of these as like, someone who's close to the data can pre-build these data sets with some nice calculations in them and rename everything so it's nice and user-friendly. And they could share that with other analysts, whoever you want to be able to, create reports. And they could use these as like a governed piece of metadata. So I can start from that, but what I'll show you is creating a new data set from scratch. So all the connectors that we saw on that slide earlier, connect to Redshift, connect to data in S3, or use Athena, connect to my data in S3. Redshift, SQL Server, Salesforce, lots of different kind of options here. So I'll use Redshift as an example. So I'm just giving it a name first. Next, it'll actually auto-discover any instances that I have in my AWS account. So it found my demo cluster. If I had configured VPC connectivity, this is where I would choose that VPC connection. This is our public demo data, so we have this publicly accessible, but if this was a database in a VPC, then that's where I choose that VPC. All right, so I basically just enter the information and my credentials and hit connect. Next I get my list of schemas in the database. And then once I pick a schema, then I get all my tables and my views. I optionally can just put input custom SQL. If I want to just paste a SQL statement in as my select, you can do that as well. If you need to do things like table joins, you can use this edit preview data. So this is kind of like your data prep window. So for instance, like maybe I need to join in some other table, like the company names. And here I can define what that join should look like. So here, these two tables join on company name equals company name. Once I hit apply, then my list of fields in my little data preview window is just showing data from all tables that I've joined together. You can also add calculated fields at this point if you'd like. So if you want to create some standardized mathematical calculations, like what does profit mean to us, or you need to do like date manipulation, string manipulation, if statements, all that kind of stuff you could build in at this point. You can also add calculations later on as well, but this is more like building them into the data model. Then lastly, here's where you choose whether you want to query your data directly or if you want to import it into Spice. So remember, Spice is there just to give your data a performance boost, if you will. So once it's in memory, you're guaranteed you're going to get really good performance, like sub-second, single-digit second responses. You can always come back and change this later on as well. So you're not locked down of I choose Spice, I can never switch it back. You can always come back and change this. So I'm just going to switch to a table that actually has everything already pre-joined. Here I'm going to change the data type of one of these columns. It thought this came in as a text field, but I'm telling QuickSight this is actually a date. So you can do some kind of light data transformations here too. All right, so I'm happy with my data that I've prepared. I have all my joins built out, say all my calculations added right. So now I'm going to say, let's save and visualize. So since I chose Spice, it's going to import that data. It'll notify me once it's finished importing. Over here on the left-hand side, these are all the fields from the data. And here's the visual types you can choose from. So this is autograph. This will automatically pick an appropriate visualization depending on the type of data you select. So like if I select some metric, then it first gives me like a KPI number. Let's do the same thing, but if I grab a metric and let's say a date field, so it changes it instead to a line chart. I can control, should this be at a weekly, monthly, yearly level, so you can roll it up. If I want to at this point, I could add that forecast. So here's where forecasting out. You can control how many periods forward or backward you want to run the forecast. And oops, didn't mean to hit back there. Sorry, 1 second. Let's let this come back. And one other thing I want to point out here is this Insights button. So remember those natural language narratives that we saw on the dashboard before. So this is one way to originate them. So as soon as I start building anything, right, we just have these two simple charts here. QuickSight is starting to run a bunch of calculations and algorithms on the data to try and find things that are interesting. So for instance, like in my time trend, here it found an anomaly where it was 44% up from expected. Where was a big month over month change? Where was my lowest month? Where was my highest month? Right, so all different kind of, and including stuff like my forecast. If you like any of these, then you can add them into the dashboard. So I just click the little plus button there. Each of these has a little plus button on them. And then I can add it into the dashboard too. So I can leave this as is and say, here's my forecasted value. I can format that number so that it's, chopped off and not so many decimals on it as well. But you can also completely customize what's said in these narratives. So if you open this up, this will show you how we constructed that piece of text there. So these are just kind of like hard-coded pieces of text, and these are variables from the forecasting calculation. And you can insert these, from the left here. You can write whatever other text you want as well. All right, you can change text color and do if statements in here to say, if it was greater than 0, turn it green, otherwise turn it red. So lots of pretty sophisticated pretty sophisticated kind of calculations and insights and stuff that you can craft here. So that's just a quick example of adding one of those insights. Maybe last thing we'll do here is maybe two more things. We've got time. So let's add an example where we set that drill down that we saw earlier. So for instance, like if I have my industries and I want to allow my users to go from industry to the customers to the orders, something like that, all you need to do is just drag the fields in the order you'd like them to drill down. So if I bring this field just below the other one, see it says here I can add a drill down layer. Same thing with orders, for instance. So now when I share this with them, then they can do that same thing where they can say, let's drill into tech customers, let's drill into Amazon, and let's see what orders they had. Okay, so finally, just one example of like a text table. Again, a lot of our customers use QuickSight and just build text tables. So here you can do either a pivot table or a raw table. Maybe I want to do very, very granular information, and I want to say every single order, who is the customer, what date did they place the order on, some numbers about this, what city and state are they in as well. So add whatever information you want to include into the table, and then and basically it's going to build that out here on the bottom. You can sort it however you'd like. So here I'll sort by this column. I can add or remove totals. But very simple, easy way to make a table. All right, so at this point, let's show how to publish this and share it. So I was just going to fill this space here with something. Let's go add, this other insight here. There we go. So say I'm happy with the dashboard that I have here. I could add as many filters as I want to this as well. I won't necessarily go through that part, but you could add filters for any field you have in the data. And then lastly, here's where I'm going to share this. So I can choose publish dashboard or share the analysis. So if I share the analysis, this is more for if I'm collaborating with another analyst and we both want to work on this together, then I would share the analysis with them. Otherwise, more commonly, I'm going to say publish dashboard. So I'll give it a name, or maybe I'm replacing an existing one, but here I'm making a new one. And then lastly, who gets access to this dashboard? So I could share it with everybody, or I could share it with a group of users. So as I type in here, it's going to show me users and groups. So I could say I want to share this, with sales management or the VP team or individual people. And when I hit share, then they'll get an email notification it's been shared with them, but it's also just going to show up as a dashboard that they have access to when they go log into QuickSight. All right, so here's that same example, but more from the reader view. So we were authoring this, we built the analysis, and then when we just publish this as a dashboard, this is what the readers are going to see. So all that drill down that we built in before, like drilling into the data, again, those users can do that. They can drill into time as well, like if I want to drill into the weeks within that month. So this is just saying that we can't turn the forecast on because you need more than 6 data points to do a forecast and only 4 weeks in a month. So that's all it's saying. But nonetheless, you can do the drill down wherever you'd like. All right, so this kind of concludes an end-to-end. We started with what do my end users see? We went and connected to a Redshift database. We imported data into Spice. We built some analysis out here using some machine learning as well with the forecasting and all that, and shared that out with a number of users. So just to return back to the presentation here, just to touch on maybe a couple more things, and then we can take any other questions that you guys have in the chat there too. So in terms of deploying QuickSight, so we have lots of different certifications from a privacy standpoint. So HIPAA certification, SOC 2, PCI, ISO. So we should certainly meet any kind of security requirements that you have. We have lots of financial institutions, healthcare providers, government agencies that use it too. We're available in those following regions, and we have some more on the roadmap for this year. There is built-in redundancy and high availability and disaster recovery into it. So for instance, we automatically replicate across multiple availability zones in the region. We also back everything up to S3, so you're guaranteed you're never going to lose any of your content. From a data governance perspective, we talked about creating those data sets where I could build row-level security into them and set a refresh rate if I'm using Spice. And then I could share that with a number of users. So think of those as like your pieces of metadata you can put governance on. Talked about Spice. From an authentication standpoint, you can do either Active Directory, or you can federate users into QuickSight with any other single sign-on platform. So if you use Ping or Okta or even Cognito, which is in AWS identity management system, anything that supports SAML, you can get your users into QuickSight and single sign that way. From an auditing perspective, all of the user activity is logged via CloudTrail, and then you can build custom audit dashboards on top of that data to see, what are the most popular dashboards, or who is viewing which dashboards at which times, who's sharing new dashboards with people. Right? All of that information you can audit. All these customer references are on our website as well. And again, we can share this with you, but just to name a few of them. So Rio Tinto, they've deployed actually to 12,000 users by this point. But they are an example of someone who previously were just giving a lot of their workforce like spreadsheets and PDFs. And these are managers who work in their mines, so their global mining company. And the information on there is all about safety information. So did people take their safety certifications? Are they up to compliance? And before they'd receive this in static reports, but now they get QuickSight email reports, but they also can drill into them. And again, it's all kind of customized to just that person's slice of the data. We looked at the NFL's example. So NFL embeds QuickSight into their application. That then is viewed by different NFL teams and the broadcasters who actually talk at the games. They put some of these stats up on the boards and on the jumbotrons in the actual stadiums too. And that's all powered by AWS, and specifically the presentation layer by QuickSight. AutoTrader uses us on top of their S3 data lake to kind of enable self-service on top of the data lake. Volvo uses us with IoT data, so they collect data from this is the part of Volvo that's the big trucks, not necessarily like the little Volvo cars. But in these trucks, they have IoT sensors and they collect data in real time. And then in their offices, they have dashboards set up on big screens around the office. And they correlate the data that they're pulling from the trucks, which is stored in AWS, and they do a bunch of crunching of the data in AWS with their AWS bill itself. So if I'm a developer and I actually go change some code that is retrieving more data from these trucks, I actually get to see how it affects my AWS bill too. So it's kind of an interesting use case of looking at billing data as well as IoT data. Okay, so lots of other examples in here. Siemens uses us in embedded fashion as well. They have a product that goes out to manufacturing customers, which QuickSight is embedded into. All right, so I just wanted to cover those customer examples, and I did want to save time for questions if folks had them. So just a reminder, you can sign up for QuickSight right on the website where you signed up for the demo. There is a trial. There's a free user that's good forever. There's a trial of up to 5 users that's good for 2 months. You don't need to do anything special to enter the trial. It's just when you sign up for QuickSight, you're not billed for 5 users for the first 2 months. And yeah, so please try it out yourself on your own data. You have our contact information if you need to ask questions, as you're trialing QuickSight. We'd love to hear from you and be able to help you get over any hurdles that you might run into, answer any other questions that you might have too. So with that, we'll take a look at the questions, but for folks that don't have questions, I wanted to thank you guys for attending, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Great, thanks Jesse, and thanks everyone for joining us. if you have any questions, now's the time to put them into the Q&A panel, and we'll be happy to answer them. There's a question right now from David Zavala that says, will the tables be more dynamic? David, can you give us a little more clarity about what you mean by that, if you're still on the line?
Putting you on the spot, David. That's okay.
Right.
If you're able to unmute your line, that works great. If you want to just type it in, that works as well.
All right.
Maybe I can add a little more color to it. So maybe by more dynamic, I see. Okay, thank you. So he mentions like in other tools, like when you make a click, all the data changes. So yeah, so what I think you're referring to is like say I selected one of these bars or one of these lines, like will everything in my table update, or maybe vice versa? This is something that we don't do in QuickSight today. And I could add a number of filters and other ways of drilling down, but not for drilling like from one visual to another. But this is something that we expect to have hopefully by the end of this quarter even. So not too far away, just like a couple of months, we will have that. We're calling it linked visuals is what the feature will be called in QuickSight. So all you folks will be signed up for a QuickSight newsletter. Once you see linked visuals launch, you know what that is. If you do want to get involved, we also offer previews of all the features that we launch before we launch them publicly. So you know, we can certainly get into things like previews when we have like betas available. While you can't go from like this visual to this one, I will mention that you can jump from one report to another report. So this is kind of a different way to approach it of like, say I want to click on this row of data and either go launch something like Salesforce, like a whole nother app, or maybe it's just another QuickSight dashboard where I'm drilling down on that order ID with some more details. Or like I want to go click on this day or this number and drill to some other report that has more details on it. So that will filter, you know, whatever the data is presented in, you know, in dashboard B that you're drilling to. It's just that it opens a new report and it's not visuals within the same report. But the stuff on the same report will be coming soon. So here, a question on Spice. Is it similar to the Vertipack engine in Power BI, or is it SQL based? So from it has something that is similar to SQL in terms of the way that we query Spice, but it's kind of vertically integrated into QuickSight. So it's not, so you can't query it from somewhere else necessarily. So the language that it speaks doesn't matter so much. It's more optimized for the types of queries that QuickSight generates. But in terms of like how it's architected, it is an in-memory database. It's a columnar store type of database as well. So like it compresses each column independently, and each of them get their own sort key and index applied to them. So I think it's very much like Vertipack in that way, in terms of like the way that it stores it. But I think the idea is the same, right? It's to improve the performance of the data that you're importing into it.
It's also a follow-on question there from David asking if we have a connection with Google Analytics.
Connect with Google Analytics. We have Adobe Analytics today. We do not have Google Analytics, but this is on our roadmap. So you'll see it pop up once we build that connector. Today we do Adobe, and we'll be adding Google early this year.
Great. Well, if there's no other questions, once again, I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. We hope we got a good insight into QuickSight and how it works. Had a chance to get some questions answered. I want to say thanks again to Jesse and Neil for helping out with the walkthrough. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us. You should have emails from all of us. And to talking to you again. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Great.
Jess.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.